Um, I think, yes, here we go. I'd like to start, please. First off, I'd like to say a very warm welcome to the Pop Climate Leadership Conversations tribute to our chief mentor. This project aims to strengthen youth leadership and explore tactics that empower the youth to take action and tackle the most pressing environmental issues faced globally. We are conducting a series of conversations on leadership strategies, recommendations, reflections, and examples, each focused on global leadership and a different pressing environmental issue. This initiative is designed and implemented as a tribute to our chief mentor, late Dr. R.K. Pachauri. Today, we have the pleasure and privilege of speaking with His Excellency Dr. Lawrence Gonzi, former Prime Minister of Malta, about leadership needed for blue ecosystem restoration. A very warm welcome, Your Excellency. Thank you so much once again for being with us, and your time and insights are absolutely invaluable as we promote youth leadership, especially in the field of blue economy and blue ecology. Thank you so much once again, and a warm welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Ash.
Thank you so much.
To contribute as best as I can.
It's invaluable. Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, and thank you to everyone who's watching this leadership conversation today. I will now go ahead and introduce our guest for the day. A former prime minister for 9 years, Lawrence Gonzi led Malta during his first 9 years as a member of the European Union, transforming the island nation into a modern and dynamic European country. During his premiership, Dr. Gonzi retained the finance portfolio while guiding Malta through an economic restructuring process ahead of Malta's adoption of the euro in January 2008. In his second term, he successfully steered the economy during the most severe global economic crisis. With a political career spanning 25 years, Dr. Gonzi occupied several positions before becoming Prime Minister, including Deputy Prime Minister, Prime Minister for Social Security, and Speaker of the House of Representatives. Thank you so much for joining us today. And now we will have 4 different questions from our youth leaders. Our first question will be asked by Dr. Pachauri.
Thank you so much, Anna, and warm welcome once again, Your Excellency. We're delighted to have you here and are really looking forward to an insightful and enlightening conversation. To get us started, Your Excellency, I wondered if I could ask you to reflect on what your definition and idea for leadership is, especially within the blue ecology and ecosystem realm, please. Thank you.
Sure, Ash. Thank you for the introduction. Anna, thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you again and to meet the group as well. You bring back lovely memories, especially of our last event we shared together in Durango in Mexico. Brings back some very nice memories. And by the way, I keep in touch with some of the young participants and contributors who became, close friends over the years, with whom I communicate with today with this technology that we are sharing together. But let me start off, first of all, to follow up on your introduction. In other words, this event is intended to be a tribute to Dr. Rajendra Pachauri, the father of Ash, your father, Ash. And assuming that there are people who might be following on YouTube or perhaps as I did, just logging on to the contribution at a later stage. But there may be people who have not had the privilege and the pleasure of meeting your father before unfortunately we lost him. And perhaps it is important for us to remind ourselves who he was, the message he sent to us, and the inspiration he gave to everybody, including myself, for us to commit ourselves a little bit more in favor of a sustainable economy, in favor of measures that need to be taken to address climate change, the challenges, etc., and the responsibility we share, all of us, to save this planet. And I use the word save this planet on purpose. I mean, we are at the stage where, unfortunately, we're talking about saving the planet. In other words, it is in danger. This is not, it is not something we just might pretend that does not exist. It is in serious danger. And there are individuals such as myself that live in a country. My country is an island surrounded by the sea, where the issue of climate and the impact of climate and the eventual consequences on our quality of life, indeed on our survival, depend very much on what we do and what the rest of the planet does. So this is it has to be a unique event that brings us together in order to address this enormous challenge that we have. You know, I keep saying, I remember I made this point in Durango when in the brief speech I had made over there. And when we were in Durango, the pandemic was at its beginning. You know, there was concern across, but it was at the very beginning. And at the time, I was impressed by the fact that the whole world was slowly coming together to do something about the pandemic. You know, this is going to ruin us. This is going to kill people. This is going to impact us, etc. This was a year ago. Throughout the months, I've noticed that the whole planet, the countries are coming together. They are joining each other to address the challenges of the pandemic. Well, hang on. You know, fine, that's excellent. It is true. We need to do that. But climate change is even worse. You know, climate change is even worse. We can find a vaccine, fortunately, because of science, in order to address the virus, the pandemic, and hopefully also for the future, if we, I hope not, but if we happen to go through a similar situation, there are vaccines. But there is no vaccine for climate change. There is no vaccine for the disaster that we are living through today. So this context places Dr. Pachauri, the late Dr. Pachauri, and the pop movement as well, but the late Dr. Pachauri, exactly where he needs to be. In other words, an inspiration for us to understand the urgency of doing something about this. And speaking to young people such as yourselves, but this is a message that is addressed to everybody. So it's not just the young generation, but the young generation are the ones who will pay the highest price. You know, because this is unfortunately the inheritance that we are leaving behind us, which you are receiving, the younger generation are receiving, and your challenge is going to be even bigger than ours, because the situation is going to get worse unless something is done about it. And Dr. Pachauri had received a Nobel Prize in representation of the IPCC, which was the group of people who placed this item on the highest level of the agenda. A Nobel Prize that was shared with Al Gore, who was the Vice President of the United States. So please, those of you who are following us, let's not take this event as just a very nice conversation between us, and then when it's all over, we just turn off our computers and go back to our normal way of life. No, we need to understand how urgent this is. Now, of course, the issue of climate change and the impact of that and the planet, etc., is like I don't know, like a whole basket full of different challenges. And the discussion, the conversation we're having this morning, morning in my country, I don't know in yours, but the conversation we're having today together invites us to focus on a particular dimension of this large list of challenges. And as Ash has said in his introduction, we are asked to focus a little bit of our time on what is described as the blue ecosystem restoration. Now, the words themselves speak volumes. Okay, first of all, if it's blue, the immediate association is towards the oceans, towards the sea, towards an economy that is out there, that is so important, that is dependent on the oceans that we share as human beings. That is the beautiful part of this planet. I don't know. I keep looking back at. I read an article recently by an astronaut who was one of the first of the Apollo moon landings, and in his memoirs he mentions that what impressed him most was seeing the blue planet, seeing the planet from so many thousands of kilometers away, right next to the moon, actually. But looking back at planet Earth and seeing this marble, he described it as a marble, the blue part of it. That is the beautiful part of our planet, the blue. Now, as I said in my introduction, I come from a small island in the middle of the Mediterranean. It is at the southernmost tip of the European continent. So you've got Italy. Italy is like a boot. Italy at its bottom part has a large island called Sicily. And Malta is a few kilometers, halfway between the southernmost tip of Italy and the North African coast. So we've got Libya on our southernmost tip and Sicily, so Italy, on our north. And we're smack in the middle. This island has been for thousands of years and the envy of a lot of powerful countries. So, the strategic location, anyone occupying this island, the middle of the Mediterranean, had full control of the Mediterranean. And please understand that 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, having control of the Mediterranean was crucial for a number of reasons. But it remained crucial during the First World War, remained crucial during the Second World War, because Malta had actually anyone there could control the situation. So cut a long story short, there's a long history of an island surrounded by the sea that lived, survived, progressed, and succeeded because it managed to live from the benefits of the sea. Whether it was the shipping industry, whether it was the trade that went through between the North African continent, the African continent, the North African coast, and the European continent. So what I'm trying to say is, you're speaking, you have in me somebody who is desperate to save the sea, and who gets enormously frustrated when we realize that something is wrong in this equation, because the sea is getting sick, and unless we really take this matter seriously, then countries such as mine, either because of climate change and the rise of sea levels, or because of pollution and the impact of plastic on and one of these or all of these will eventually ruin our quality of life. Now, the title and the introduction that Ash has asked me to put to you, and then we can move on to specific questions. But the issue is once we understand that the ocean is becoming sick as a result of human activity, whether it's the rubbish we put into the sea, whether it's the disasters of oil spillage, or whether it is the uncontrolled pumping of sewage and wastewater into the sea, because it's convenient, because it's cheap, because this and because that, and whether it's because of the tons of plastic that's going into the sea and ending up into our ecosystem at that level, all of this needs to be restored. So we have an ecosystem that is getting sick as a result of human activity, and we have the responsibility to try and restore it as much as possible. Now, what's interesting, and I must say I am not an expert on the subject, but in preparing myself for this conversation, I researched a little bit the initiatives taken by the United Nations that announced a few months ago that a specific initiative with respect to the restoration of the ecosystems it has been launched. And the official launch, in fact, will take place in June. On the 5th of June of 2021, the United Nations will be officially launching what it has described as the decade, so 10 years of ecosystems restoration. So 2021 to 2030. And there's strategies over there. I invite those of you who are interested to look this up, go into the website of the United Nations, look it up. It is an initiative that is focused exactly on the theme that you have asked for us to discuss this today. So it's a decade that aims, and I will quote here the words used by the United Nations, aims to prevent, halt, and reverse the degradation of ecosystems on every continent and in every ocean. So the ocean is, again, an important part of this initiative. And again, it describes how these events and these issues, if taken seriously, they will help to address issues of poverty, issues that are directly linked to climate change, and eventually issues that, unless addressed, could create instances of mass extinction, either in our biodiversity, but also with respect to human beings. So, this is the context. This is where we are. The opportunity to discuss with you as young people, the importance of placing all of this at the highest level of our agenda, and inviting young people to take a leadership position on these issues. You have a voice, and I keep saying that voice is a strong voice. And that voice needs to be heard, and it needs to be heard by people who are in the decision-making positions. It needs to be heard by people who need to be kept accountable. You have an enormous, powerful tool in your hands, at least in those countries that have the benefit of having a democratic system, and therefore every now and then that the democratic system invites you to express your vote by choosing individuals for either your local councils or your local administration or your national administration. You have such a powerful tool to choose the right people and place those people into position where they can decide in the best interest of the planet. Of course, I would love to see young people eventually, not just voting, but being there and people voting for them. But that's another topic which we can discuss at a later stage.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I think that this context has been absolutely incredible and invaluable for us to be able to understand and also be able to appreciate that, COVID certainly has created many perspectives, but we must understand, like you rightly said, that COVID will put climate change will put COVID to a very mild extent, one that has been an upheaval for all of us, because climate change is such a major threat, not only for generations now, but certainly also for generations to come, and is going to get exacerbated unless we urgently address this issue. And for us to take leadership in terms of bringing in decision makers and leaders who will be able to work with us to protect our planet and our oceans, which are fundamental to our very own existence, is critical. So I sincerely appreciate your sort of setting the context, getting us to start thinking about this, but very importantly, also taking action. And I want to say that, in your presence, actually, last year, like you said, in Durango, during the Perils of Sea Level Rise session, at which you shared your thoughts and your wisdom, was the session at which we launched the POP Ocean Initiative, at which we've had the pleasure and privilege of having you speak after as well during the Ocean Day event last year, is a very, very active initiative of the POP movement. And I want to say that we're very proud to say that we have a lot of young people throughout the POP movement globally that are extremely active and passionate and driven to address the ocean issues and threats that we face around ocean issues. And we would definitely want to push that effort, but also ensure that we have a lot of young people listening into this conversation, being inspired, and then following up with action. Of course, we're very excited to keep you posted and to seek your wisdom and guidance as we go forward. So thank you so much once again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have Levi here, who will be the second youth member to ask a question. I don't know, Levi, if your connection is, if you're ready to go. If not, we can pass it on to Trisha.
Yes,
Levi,
thank you very much.
Levi, you might want to just say where you're speaking from as well, please, Levi. Thank you.
Oh, okay, yes. So this is Levin and I'm from Zambia, Lusaka, Zambia. Sorry, my network, my connection has been poor where I am, but I know I believe you are able to get me. And yes, I'm from Lusaka, Zambia. And I can go ahead with the question, or maybe I didn't get it.
Yes, you may
Yes.
go ahead, Levi.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, so I wanted to find out something from His Excellency. Uh, we are still learning and we really want to learn more, even at this stage, at this age. So, since we are talking about ecosystem restoration, and there are so many things that we would want to find out from Your Excellency. So I really wanted to ask, why restoring this question? This is what I wanted to ask. Why is restoring blue ecosystems so important for the resilience of the planet? That's what I really wanted to find out. If His Excellency they give us that, I would appreciate the importance of restoring blue ecosystem to the resilience of the planet. Yes.
Levi, can you repeat the question? Because why is...
Oh, I'm saying, why is it so important for the restoration of the blue ecosystem to the resilience of the planet? Yes.
Yes. Okay, Levi. Thank you so much. Let me extend my greetings not just to you, but to all your countrymen in Zambia, the beautiful part.
Thank you. They will appreciate. Yes.
Of Africa, and you have a country which has so many assets and resources and the beautiful nature there. So I extend my best wishes to you all, and I hope you are all keeping safe under the present circumstances. Perhaps someday in the future we'll have the opportunity to meet as well. So I'll come to your question. Why is it important? It is vital. It is absolutely vital for us to understand that the survival of the planet depends on a number of aspects, on a number of things. But the oceans that we share, the food we gain from our oceans, the trade we carry out because of our oceans, the impact of the ocean and the health of the ocean on climate, on the weather patterns. Today, it's scientifically confirmed that the health of the ocean itself impacts on the quality of the weather, that eventually impacts, of course, in a terrible way if it goes wrong on countries that are not just countries that are next to the shores, and therefore not just those countries like mine that are surrounded by the sea, but bad weather, horrible weather, dangerous weather impacts continents and countries that are not necessarily close to the sea. And we've seen an increase in hurricanes, we've seen an increase in flooding, etc. It's happening around us. And I keep asking myself, but why do I still hear voices that are skeptical about this and that try to minimize all this? It is happening right under our nose. It is killing people. It is making people poor. It is impacting in a terrible manner the whole planet. And yet you get people who just do not understand. So why is it important? Why is our ocean important? Because we live on the benefits that the oceans give us, okay? And because we seem to have treated the oceans in these last 100 years, 200 years, as the rubbish dump where we can dump all the bad things that we are uncomfortable with and use the ocean as the place where to dump this. I mean, I was reading again recently on the impact of plastic in the oceans. In one particular instance, I'll be precise here. In one particular instance, I found out that there are in our oceans there are 5 massive patches of plastic in the oceans around the world. Massive. These huge concentration of plastic debris includes one that is the size of the size of the state of Texas in the United States. So imagine one whole patch of plastic floating in the ocean. It is situated between California and Hawaii. It's there in the ocean between California and Hawaii. The size of this patch of plastic is the size of the state of Texas. Can you even envisage this? That plastic came there because we didn't care, because we just dumped our plastic there. And I was recently following a program on the Italian television station, the national television station, where they were pointing out that as a result of the pandemic as well, as a result of COVID, inevitably there has been a substantial increase in the use of plastic by our medical community in gloves, in masks, in this and that, etc. And that, in other words, that is one of the side effects of the coronavirus pandemic has been the increase of the level of plastic that is finding itself into our oceans. Now, I go out for walks even on my island where I live, and sometimes I see these masks on the floor. Just somebody just leaves them there, etc. But this is where we are. So now imagine that plastic eventually, according to the scientific researches that have been carried out, that plastic breaks down into little molecules. And those molecules end up even at the deepest part of our oceans on the planet. Eventually, they are eaten by or end up in the fish, in the ecosystem, the whole ecosystem that we have depending on the ocean. And the fish, the food that we take out of our seas has ended up containing itself these little molecules of plastic. So we're ending up putting that back into our own bodies, our own internal system. Now, this is a disaster. This is a disaster. And the impact of all of this will be a long-term negative impact, including on our health. So this is just a small example. Now, let me share with you an example, which is a positive example, not a negative one. And it shows that if we really put our mind to it, there are solutions. Let me share with you an experience which I lived through, related again to my country, and that is linked to sewage treatment and second-class water. As I explained, Malta is an island where for a long number of years, since the time when the island was occupied by the Roman Empire, so 2,000 years, etc., used a system where its sewage was thrown into the sea. And even in recent years, so let's say until, I would say 30 years ago, the whole sewage system on the island was based around a setup, an infrastructure that had these big pipes moving out perhaps 1 kilometer outside into the sea, and sewage pumped out into the sea. Now, remember, as I said in the introduction, my country depends mostly, not exclusively, but to a large extent, on tourism. Okay, so now it's not about tourists, it's also about us, first and foremost. I mean, if my children go to swim in the sea, in the beautiful beaches we have around the island, and that sea is polluted, I mean, it's irresponsible on our part if we had to allow this to continue. So it was a situation that was harming ourselves, first and foremost, but was also undermining the aspect of tourism. You wouldn't get tourists who would return to the island if they found out that the sea around us is polluted. You wouldn't get our diving community, where there's a big business there, that would refuse to come to the island if they went diving around our seas and instead of enjoying the beauty of nature, just found a polluted sea. Okay, so we decided about this was at the time, I would say just after joining the European Union. Malta became an independent state in 1964. It joined the European Union in 2004. That's the first year when I became prime minister. So I was sitting around the table of my colleagues, prime ministers of another 28 member states around the table, and Malta enjoyed the privilege of receiving large sums of money from the European Union to invest in its infrastructure and to address on specific priority areas. And we decided that we would use a good part of those money to address this problem. We needed to make sure that we had the cleanest sea in the whole Mediterranean within a short period of time. Okay, so we started by investing millions of euros that came partly from the European Union, partly from our taxes, and we invested into three major sewage treatment plants, north, south, and middle of the island. And once these were inaugurated, the whole sewage systems used to be treated through these systems. And eventually, wastewater was used, second-class water was extracted, used for our farming needs, and the rest would be then pumped out, but without damaging the sea around us. In 2019, this is 1 year ago, basically, and a half. Okay, there was a report by what is known as the European Agency for the Environment, and this report said that nearly 99% of all swimming zones in the Maltese Islands reached the highest level of excellency with respect to the seawater and quality of seawater. So whereas in the rest of the European Union, the average was 85% of swimming zones, we had reached in Malta 99% of our sea that was of the highest quality, and that, of course, enjoyed by the Maltese, by the tourists, by etc. So the best marketing brand for us that immediately translated into benefits to our island. I mean, we could now advertise the island as having the cleanest seawater around us. And you know, so it needed money, yes, but it needed the politicians and, of course, the civil society to understand that this needed to be put at the highest level of the agenda. My point here is this. There might be challenges that might appear to be impossible to surmount. Our problem with sewage treatment had existed for hundreds of years, thousands of years. But putting your mind to it, making difficult choices because you needed to shift funds from other areas onto this because you understand that this is of major importance and you address it. And I think that was an experience which proved that if we really put our minds to it, we can come up with solutions. So the answer to Levy is this. It is crucial for our quality of life. It is crucial for our future. It is, and eventually it translates into enormous benefits for us. I mean, this is not wasted money. It is an investment that gives us excellent returns.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if I may have missed something because of connectivity issues, but I've gotten a lot of things. I've asked that question because, here in where our countries are landlocked countries, like in Africa, we don't pay much attention to green, to blue ecosystems. So we think maybe this is not for us, it's not part of us, and even restoring it, we may even think to say it's just maybe for those people who are near or who are closer to the oceans and these other places, but everyone must take part, and that's how that can be achieved. So I wanted to find out what kind of political leadership is needed for this to be ensured. What do you think, Your Excellency? So that maybe if you can also tell us that in.
Levy, let me again share with you briefly, so that I will give time to other questions, but briefly, political leadership means that you need to take the tough decisions and you have to have the courage to take those tough decisions. If a political leader, at whatever level, I'm not just talking at the national level, at the highest level, of course, first and foremost, they're the biggest responsibility, but this filters down to every level of society. You need to understand that decisions need to be taken not on whether it makes you popular or unpopular, but on rather whether it is in the best interest, not only short term, but mostly long term. I had, during my term of office as Prime Minister, 9 years, I faced this situation a number of times. I had to take decisions that made me very unpopular, but they were necessary for the country. There was a time when the price of oil, during the financial crisis that hit us in 2008, the price of oil shot up to what, $140 a barrel. Nowadays it's $50, $60 a barrel. At the time it was $140 a barrel. You know, now I could have allowed the situation to remain there and try to kick this problem underneath the carpet and hide it, etc. That would eventually have meant that my country would have gone bankrupt, or else address it and try to find solutions in order to keep the economic situation going forward. At a point in time, I had to increase the rates of water and electricity for industry and for our families. It was a tough decision, made me extremely unpopular, but it eventually proved that we could overcome the challenges put to us because of the financial crisis. And whereas other countries had suffered a lot in 2008, Malta continued to move forward, and we avoided all the terrible consequences that other countries had to face. So political leadership. Anyone who decides to enter into a leadership position needs to understand that it's not a matter of popularity. You need, of course, to gain votes to be elected. Otherwise, you might just as well stay at home. So you need to understand what the electorate, whoever is voting to you, what they're after. But you need to do this believing strongly that at the end of the day, if you explain the agenda, you explain the problem, you explain the challenge, and you explain the solution, and you do it in an intelligent way, then the people out there will start to understand, and they will come along as long as the politician is sincere and transparent in whatever he does. This is why young people are important in the whole political scenario, okay? Because young people are not biased or already put into a format that is the inheritance of long tradition of politics, etc. Young people bring a fresh approach. They have the courage to address these issues. That they come with an enthusiasm that very often surprises me and encourages me as well. I'm no longer within that category. But it is the younger generation that very often comes up with the most innovative ideas in order to address these challenges. So if I may take this opportunity precisely to invite young people to understand that entering politics means it's a unique golden opportunity to really bring change to your village, to your town, to your country. And it is, I keep saying this, it is the most powerful tool you could possibly wield to bring change. Okay, it would be, of course, like any other tool, it can be used for good change and it can be used for bad change as well. But it is a powerful tool. And my encouragement to the younger generation is to come forward and put your minds to it, because you can really bring good change for your own country.
Thank you very much. Anna, you can pick it up.
Thank you so much. I'm taking notes as we speak because everything has been so interesting and insightful. Now, our next youth speaker who will be asking a question is Ms. Priyanka Prakash, who's here with us.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for taking the time out and having this wonderful conversation with us. It's been so meaningful and it's very inspiring for youth leaders like us to learn from leaders and take forward our action that we are so hopeful about that should bring change in the future. So thank you so much for this. I'll quickly move on to my question. I'll just extend to what Levi had asked. So Your Excellency, how do you think the restoration of blue ecosystems can help local communities that highly depend on the ocean? And what kind of local leadership do you think is needed to lead this kind of ecosystem restoration?
Yes, thank you, Priyanka. the communities that live next to the oceans are obviously the ones that are mostly interested in addressing this issue. But let's emphasize, it is not just them; it's the rest of the countries, even landlocked countries, countries that are not close to the sea, that are also highly dependent on what happens to our oceans. I mentioned already, I need not repeat, but it's because of the food, it's because of the trade, it's because of so many factors, including the ability of people to travel from one point to another, etc. But let's not go into that. It is important for us to understand that the state of health of our oceans are crucial for all of us. But for countries that are close to the sea, even more so. I mean, I remember the president of the Maldives way back, I don't know, in 2004, I think, when Malta organized the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Malta, because Malta is not only a member of the European Union, Malta is also a member of the Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth encompasses a much larger group of countries spread from 5 continents, etc. And the president of the Maldives had come to Malta and made a statement which he repeated in Malta, a statement he had made to the United Nations General Assembly when he had gone there, and he said, you know, if the sea level, the level of the seas goes up even just a few inches, a large part of the Maldivian hundreds of islands would be lost completely. You know, the rise of sea level eats up a large part of their territory. For us in Malta, which is a small island, basically, of 315 square kilometers, 320 square kilometers, every inch of land we lose is equivalent to loss of thousands of kilometers in other countries. So the answer to your first question, it's crucial, fundamental, and the health of the ocean therefore impacts in a large portion the quality of life of countries, of people such as those of countries that live close to the shore. The second part of your question with respect to the way politicians need to be brought to understand this is again by explaining as in a scientific way to our leaders, to our politicians. You know, there is science that backs this up. There are research documents out there that prove how important this is and how vital it is. I will also link this to another point which I wish to make, because it's also an experience which I lived through and I can share with you. Because again, the quality of the sea and the ocean and the health of the ocean depends as well, impacts as well on the quality of water. Now, countries, especially in the African continent, I'm not sure what the situation is in Zambia, but certainly in parts of Africa, the issue of water is crucial. Okay, for an island like mine, the issue of water was also crucial. Again, how can you build tourism if you open your taps and you don't find water? If you can't have a shower, how in heaven's name can you really build tourism if you don't have? How can you have your manufacturing industry if you can't supply the water that the manufacturing industry needs for it to be able to operate? So you're talking about thousands of jobs, millions in larger countries. Water is fundamental. Now, in my country, for a long number of years, again because of lack of water, and of course climate change, which started to impact on the quantity of water, of rainfall. A lot of our farmers and industry started to dig boreholes into the fields to tap into the water resources that are buried deep within the rocks. Now, you know what? Science proved that if you pump too much water out of your water table and your water table goes down below the sea level, what happens is the sea starts to seep into your water table. That suddenly becomes salty. And the salty water table impacts negatively then your whole ecosystem, in the case of Malta, on the island. So again, major disaster. We needed to address this. And the way we addressed it so far, and fortunately, the technology is improving as time goes by, we built a number of what are today described as reverse osmosis plants. So what they do is they capture seawater, then which goes through a process, a cleaning, filtering process that eventually generates clean water. Of course, the downside is that you need a lot of energy to do this. So I keep saying that in Malta, a bottle of water costs the same as a bottle of whiskey, basically. But you get the water. You need the water, and the tourism does well, and your economy does well, etc., because you have the water. Now imagine what happens if you get pollution in the seas, if you get an oil spill, for example. For heaven's sake, I mean, it's the worst thing that could possibly happen to us. But an oil spill around the island will ruin us. It will ruin us not only because of the impact on the ecology and all the negatives, but also because we won't be able to purify the seawater and generate the drinking water. So, presenting all of this in a plausible way, in a way that is understood by our citizens, by our families, etc., will surely persuade our political leaders to take this seriously and to really do something about it. You know, and I repeat, there are solutions. Today, there is technology that addresses most of these issues. So there you are. I hope I have answered your question, but that's my take on this issue.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting because I'm based in Mexico City and we also have a really big problem with water scarcity here. So it's interesting to see how the problem is being solved in different parts of the world. And I just wanted to ask one last question. And I know we've spoken of this throughout the conversation, but just to see if you wanted to add anything else, I wanted to ask what role the youth play in blue ecosystem restoration specifically.
Yes. Now here I would suggest, first of all, that you find the time to go into the website that I quoted earlier regarding the United Nations with the launch of the UN decade, 10 years on ecosystem restoration. Because there is a part of the website that includes a strategy, a spelled out strategy. Mind you, this will all be launched in June of this year, so next June. But there's already a lot of details there, and amongst other things, there are issues there, invites, so to speak, as to what can we do in order to do something about this. Now there are a list of things you could possibly do on an individual basis. You know, you could all of us, and little things when put together bring big change. But we could all of us decide on what to do with respect to plastic. We could all of us decide to refuse to use plastic bags. We could all of us decide to go to our supermarket and take a cloth bag rather than getting everything packed into a, simple things, little things. But if all of us does this, imagine, I don't know what the population in Mexico is. I know what the population in Malta is, okay? We're just half a million here, 500,000 plus or minus. In the best of times, we get, 2 million tourists visiting the island. So imagine 4 times as much the population visiting the island, most of them during the summer months. So that's quite a big impact. Now, if every single one of us decides to make a choice, we will not use plastic. So in that case, things will start to change. And you can see the change. One good thing about the pandemic, Anna, is that suddenly in Malta, in our inland harbors, we started seeing dolphins. Dolphins. Now, in these harbors, we used to get these great big ships and tankers and this and that and cranes and speedboats going around and all that, etc. I don't remember any time in my life when I saw dolphins swimming in the inner harbors, and enjoying themselves. Why? Because the human, in other words, this reality teaches us one clear one clear lesson. You know, we have created so many noise around us that we have scared our fish away, our dolphins away from our. Let's try to do something about it. We can do this individually, but that is not enough. That is simply not enough. And we need to stand up and be counted, and we need to push our politicians, our leaders, your leaders in your towns and villages. You start from there. You put your contribution at the level of where you can reach your town, your village, your city, whatever it is, and start the change there. It will grow. Inevitably, it will grow. I might add as well, please look at our children. Again, young people need to also bring with them their most important allies. And the most important allies for our younger generation are their brothers and sisters and friends and cousins, etc., who are attending primary school still at a very young age. If we manage to press into their minds the fact that they need to be sensitive to anything that impacts the ecosystem of the country, then if change comes at that level, it will grow exponentially over the years. So take an initiative. Join the pop movement can decide to make a specific program to make presentations to the first years at primary schools, kindergarten, something specific. This is what we do to avoid plastic. This is what we do in order to address the issue of waste separation, of keeping glass. All of these things can be done. They are within our reach. What seems to be difficult, but needs to be done as well, is to try and push that up to the level of our leaders, of our prime ministers, of our presidents, there, where the decision takers are sitting, okay? But that needs to be done, and it will be done if you make your voice heard. If you remain silent, you will, nothing will happen. Things will remain moving as if nothing has happened. Because what is unfortunate in politics, and I'll stop here because I know that time is pressing, but in politics, what is very unfortunate is that most of us live within a time window between one election and another. So if you're elected for 5 years, you're concerned on those 5 years because you need to be re-elected in 5 years' time. You're not really concerned of what's happening in 10 years' time. Well, in 10 years' time, there will be another. So it's this time. You need to explain to your politicians that this is not about this time window. We're talking here of something which is a lot more serious and a lot more long-term. So please put your minds to it, and try your very best to get this sea change taking place in a growing way that will eventually also have an impact at the national level.
Thank you so much. That was very insightful, and I'm so glad we got to hear all these amazing insights and ideas from you. I will now pass it over to Dr. Ash.
Thank you so much, Anna, and Your Excellency. Thank you very, very much. I mean, this has been, outside of the enlightenment and wisdom, is also an element of fire and inspiration. And I just want to thank you so much because you've given us a lot of ideas of what we need to do, and also the importance of understanding that it's not only those who are necessarily living by the ocean or surrounded by the ocean, but really an issue that affects all of us irrespective of where we live, because it is going to affect ocean health, planetary health, human health. And an interesting thing also, I was watching this video the other day about how with the prevalence of plastic in the ocean, a lot of, we know, marine life is suffering, and humpback whales was the specific feature of this show. And they talked about how humpback whales are actually able to absorb equivalent of what 1,500 trees would absorb in terms of carbon dioxide. And it's so important what you just shared. We must understand this within the realm of its complete context. You really drew up the context for us, and we must understand that we have a role to play. Every drop fills the ocean, but we need to be able to also get all youth and leadership at every level involved, and make commitments that are not near term as in today and their own political benefit, but really the benefit of all, because if we don't do it now, we won't have a future. And I really, really appreciate the many ideas you've shared. Very excited about looking up the website. And in fact, we do have some plans for Ocean Day, and we'd love to be involved with all that you've directed us to be involved with, and of course seek your guidance and wisdom as we go, if we may, please. I'd like to thank you ever so much, Your Excellency, once again. And as we prepare to close, I thought I would ask you if there was any closing remarks you'd like to make, and our gratitude once again.
Oh, just a word of encouragement to the pop movement and to yourselves as well. Well done to all of you, Anna and Priyanka and Levi and anyone else who's there. Just don't give up. Just keep on. You're doing a wonderful job. You're giving everyone an opportunity to exchange opinions, of course, and to come up with ideas and to be innovative, etc. So let's just encourage each other and commit ourselves to do something in order to save this planet, which is such a beautiful thing, that we have a responsibility, all of us, not just for ourselves, but also for the future generations. But well done. Keep it up, all of you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Your opening remarks were also that we mustn't just have this conversation and leave it at that. So we will follow up. We'll look forward to keeping you posted. We will work on what you also suggested, which is really to work with primary school students to be able to mobilize them, because like you said, the most creative actions and solutions come out of some of the younger generations. So this is our goal. We look forward to following up on it and to keeping you posted, to seeking your advice and guidance as we go. And I'd like to say thank you once again, because we're so deeply honored and privileged to have had this time with you, to be able to learn from you. And this has truly been an inspirational conversation. And thank you very much for being a precious part of the PUP family. We're deeply honored. Thank you so very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Ash, and all the best to all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Keep
much.
safe, please. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Norma.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Nice to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.